So, well, these are his legs. They're really his jeans that are kind of tight fitting. And so what we need to do is add some specific details in areas to make that read appropriately. And so what we can do is we can start to just take some of these loops and we can make them a little bit larger, and we can just kind of break things up a little bit just so it's not completely smooth. Okay, that's kind of a good start here. Even areas where they might be a little bit tighter, pulling that off. I can go ahead and delete the faces on the bottom, so let me go ahead and do that. Okay, we can also start to, for instance, down here, we can start to add some detail to really make this fold kind of behind the knee come alive. So go ahead and insert another edge loop, and then I can go ahead on the back side, bring these three lines out and up. Let's do the same thing kind of back here, right underneath that. Okay. And then we can come in here. Again, if you want to make something a little bit sharper, you need probably a little bit more resolution in there. And so when we get that, you can see we can start to get a little bit of a sharper line in there. And if you want to really emphasize that, you can do what we did with the wrinkle on the shirt, and that is to cut it off. If you don't want to add the resolution across the whole way, you could cut it off. I'm going to go ahead and add another one right in there. And you can back up, and you just want to make sure that it reads from a certain distance. Okay, same thing down here. We want to add a few extra lines to add some of this bunching down at the bottom. We're not going to get too complex with making specific kinds of wrinkles on this. We just want to have that bunching. It's going to be down inside the shoe, and so we can kind of come in here, scale this down a little bit, start to add a few more lines of resolution in here. Maybe bring this out a little. Okay, maybe some of these are down a little bit further and some are up a little bit more, so we can kind of start to break it up that way. So something like that. Again, kind of going back and forth, kind of rotating it a little bit, kind of break it up, moving it down a little bit. Okay, these are really tight. We don't necessarily have the loose bunching that you would see. So I'll go ahead and add another one and just kind of blend this up into the tighter areas. So maybe something like that. Maybe on the side, kind of break that up a little bit as well. Kind of pull that out a little. We can also start to add things like pockets if we want to. So let me grab the top of this, scale it down a little bit to flatten it, kind of pull it up a bit. If you want to add kind of a back pocket, you could real simply just kind of come in and extrude that in, and then pull it out just a hair. Something like that. You could tweak the position of that. And if you wanted to tighten it up, insert an edge loop. Kind of tighten up the top part of that. Okay. You could add a pocket up here as well if you wanted to. Just kind of coming in and extruding that in as well. Maybe make it come over a little bit more. Maybe something like that. Again, kind of extruding that in. This time, kind of push it in a little bit. So we'll do another extrude and kind of push that in a bit. Okay. Then if you wanted to delete that face up at the top, you could do that. And then just take those points. Grab those points again. Take those points, scale them to kind of flatten them. and then you could get sort of a pocket shape, which you could then come in and modify if you wanted to. Want to make it a little bit tighter on the side, we could go ahead and bring this edge down a little bit. Okay, to kind of tighten it up. Move this in a little. So adding those edges close by is going to create a tighter corner. Edges that are further apart are not going to be as tight. Okay. And you could go in and kind of blend this together a little bit more so that the shape is more what you want. It's just a little bit squared off right now. We could also add a seam kind of running down the side of our leg here. So when you decide maybe in here, I think I want to put it right in the center here. So let's go ahead and insert another edge loop. All right, let's go ahead and offset an edge loop from that one. Let me turn on wireframe on shaded. Do an offset on that. Let's make it fairly close, and then with that middle one selected, let's actually just push it in a little bit. So that allows us to get that sort of seam look on the side. And you could do the same thing on the middle. Now I think that's probably pushed in a little bit too far. So just barely give that indication there. All right, you can do the same thing on the inside of the leg if you want to as well. To add a little bit more resolution. Okay, I'm going to add one more line in here to just kind of allow us to avoid too much of this flat shape here. So I can now take these lines from the side of the pocket and move those in a little bit. Okay, so we get something a little bit more like that. Kind of move that out. Now it just takes a little bit of shaping to get the shape that you want. All right, if it's a little bit off as far as the shape, you don't want it to look perfect. It's supposed to be this organic kind of a shape, so you want a little bit of movement and variation in it, even if it's supposed to be super tight. Okay, if you want to tighten up that seam, all you have to do is take those points, and the closer you scale them together, the tighter that edge is going to be. Now be careful when you're doing this in a smooth mode, because it's very easy to overshoot. So if I scale something down too much and then I go back to one, you can see right now even it's getting close to being too close together. So it's very easy to have something that's actually overlapping. Okay, so we can come in here if we want to and kind of tighten up that seam on those jeans. All right, get something like that. You can see we've got a little bit of a dent here, so we can come in with these and start to get rid of that a little bit, remembering that it's okay if there's a little bit of irregularity with it. We just want to break it up so it's not just a flat spot that goes all the way down in a place where we don't want it. I think that looks pretty good. So now once we're done with this, we just want to make sure these points are still in the center, and then we can go ahead, go to mirror geometry, -X, and we can see the pants together. Now things are going to become apparent when you mirror it. For instance, you can see how this shape is really not what we want on the front here, and so this will allow you to come in and modify that. So you can now see that I want to actually bring this out a little bit more. Bring this whole thing out, but I want it to be a little bit more smooth on the front. And so we can actually go into our tool settings for Move Tool, and I'm going to turn on Soft Select. So now we get this little gradient when we select any one point or any group of points. And this is actually going to affect our model. Now, since we're working symmetrically, I also want to affect the other side, so I'm going to turn on reflection as well. And this will allow us to come in here under soft select. Let's change this up to 10. It's actually maybe 8 or so. And now we can come in and you can see how that affects the entire area of our fall off. So I just want to flatten out that front a little bit more, bring in the sides a little bit more, just so it's not, doesn't look quite so odd. So something like that. Go ahead and isolate. You can see the shirt's going to be covering that up in large part. And so you can, if you want to move your pockets down, if you're not able to see them, you can do that too. So take a step back and see how it's reading. Can you tell that those are jeans? If not, you may want to increase the scale of some of your details. You can see we need to modify this a little bit more too. Start to bring up the back end here. And let's change our fall off back down. Okay, and so we can start to bring this geometry down a little bit to kind of get the look that we want. All right. Obviously, we need to add a little bit more mass coming out this way and towards the back. So it'll just take some time to kind of look at those things and build them up. Okay. All right, so the next thing that we want to do, once we've got the pants done, is to actually start the tennis shoes, which are these sort of high tops. So let's go ahead in the next lesson and take a look at how we can start that process.